Well, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. We're thrilled you're here. I'm on staff as well. My name is Stephanie Veit. I'm in charge of what we call global alumni programs, and I won't go into too many details, but just to say that this is both working with the Alumni Board of Governors and with us as staff, thinking about strategy and engagement opportunities for our volunteers, which we are trying every day to serve with a lot of passion. And I also manage international alumni programs with Ryan, as she explained, works with Central and South America, and I work with Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and the Asia-Pacific regions. So we're here today with Laura Haines and Mike Frankel. Both of them are vice presidents on the Alumni Board of Governors. Both of them, Laura is a college grad, and Mike has so many degrees that I'm not sure I can cite them in the right order, which the right years. But it would be, I'm thrilled that they're here. Laura and I and Renee worked a lot together on these guidelines. This has been in process for 2 years now. And Mike is taking over from Laura what we call the Alumni Community Committee, which is a committee formed by the Alumni Board of Governors that looked at all the processes that we need to implement, again, to serve you better. With that said, we keep mentioning acronyms and names, and one of which you've heard many, many times is ABG, or the Alumni Board of Governors, and we realize we have too many alumni out there and volunteers who do not know what it is. So I will like for Laura to take it from there and tell you a little more about this.
Sure. First, a big thank you to everybody for coming, especially those of you who came such a very long way. We are absolutely thrilled that the volunteers have shown so much passion and so much energy in coming to support the Volunteer Caucus, or just coming to learn a little bit more about how they can be a part of the Chicago community. I think you heard President Zimmer talk about the alumni community and how it is just integral to the work that the university continues to do on a regular basis. So something very, very important. So the Alumni Board of Governors, this is my 4th year serving. It is a 30-person board from around the regions, international members, the various disciplines that came through. We've got folks who were ASC volunteers and now on the regional clubs and vice versa. So it's really a wonderful cross-pollination of the university at the highest level within the Alumni Community Committee. We feed into the Board of Trustees, Alumni Relations and Development Committee. Sorry about that. In an attempt to really gel that alumni community link. So to that end, what we did was we started talking a little bit about why volunteer guidelines. Some of us face different challenges in different regions. Some of us have many large engaged alums, and some come from very small populations, and trying to get that cross-section and really capture the best practices of what an alumni community can be through the regional club structure. As the past president of the Washington, D.C. Club, I have a little bit of experience having 6,000 folks in Washington area, working with and trying to improve the regional community structure to deliver lifelong learning, career development opportunities, social networking opportunities to these alums that come from such a broad spectrum and really all crave that Chicago connection, even though they may or may not live right within the sort of the mothership. To that end, we've really started working on the various initiatives to do with the club, talking about succession planning and volunteer pipelines and how important it is to continue to gel that stream of leadership as the clubs continue to grow and replenish that with new volunteers and new activities. We need to continue to evolve as a community to be much more of an alumni-driven, staff-supported system where the volunteers really take ownership of those committees and events and try to develop and push those things forward really as their own Genesis children. And Mike's going to talk a little bit more about some of the developments that we have coming through the pipeline, and those of you that were in the session this morning with President Zimmer heard a bit about those. But it's really more tools more connection and giving the alumni the ability to choose how they want to connect through the university, and to that end, empowering the regional communities to tackle that. So to that end, Stephanie mentioned this has been a multi-year project, and we've gotten input from various club leadership, people who've been involved, and we've really tried to roll out some different guidelines. So with that said, I'll just turn this over to, I think,
All right.
Stephanie.
Thanks, Laura. So it was very clear to us that the need for guidelines, let's face it, there was just no guidelines. There were a few web pages on the website that if you were lucky, you could find through 25 click-throughs, on a good day. And there were very few processes that were explained, whether it pertained to how the Alumni Association supports the club, how you organize an event, what kind of event we would like to see you organize, what kind of board we would like to see in place, and most importantly, what is a University of Chicago Alumni Club? There was no definition whatsoever anywhere, and I think we all shared a common vision and a common mission, but there was absolutely nothing in writing anywhere. So we looked at all our clubs all over the world. So Renee, correct me if I'm wrong, 39 in the U.S.? 39 clubs in the U.S.?
Yes.
39 clubs in the U.S., 33 international. And we looked at the broad aspect, okay, how many people are really active on the board, because you can have 20 people on the board and 3 people doing the job, for everybody, as we know, and how many events do they organize, and what kind of events. And it really came down that looking at best practices of other universities, because we looked at what our peer institutions were doing, a club was defined by really 2 important things. It's a board structure, and a minimum of 3 people, a president, a vice president, and a program chair. Why a vice president? A lot of people have asked me this, and that's for us to ensure succession planning. Let's say that, for example, when Laura was president of the club in DC, had she been transferred, to Los Angeles, well, she would have been very happy at the time, and I know you did, but she had a vice president who could take over and ensure succession planning. So this is extremely important for us. These 2 positions, president, vice president, will be in charge, with our help, of identifying, I can never pronounce that correctly, their successors. So it's not about being elected or, president for life. We have a few situations like this where we have a club president who's been president for 25 years, but it's about recruiting more people to work with you, to help you, to bring new blood and new ideas into your club. The third position, the program chair, it sounds pretty obvious, but in many, many clubs, it's actually the president or someone else, or the secretary, who's programming a lot of events. And for example, Marta in Mexico, almost single-handedly, programs all the events for the Alumni Club of Mexico. And this person needs a very specific role and a specific job description to work with us so that we can push out university initiatives, and I will come back to that. And we can help you develop programming that is attractive to your local alumni. So this is really where this is coming from. The second thing is that, as Laura mentioned, we really want to move forward towards an alumni-driven, staff-supported philosophy or / concept. So what does it mean? It really means that until recently, a lot of clubs, communities, were solely relying on the Alumni Association and the university for programming. And perhaps they had, one faculty lecture a year, one Harper lecture, or one visit by a faculty or something else, and that was it. And let's face it, this is not what makes your alumni community sustainable. What makes it sustainable is engagement from your side in the club to think about events that are volunteer-led and volunteer-driven or volunteer-led, which means that you come with the idea, you ask us for help, we advise you on, well, are you sure this is going to work? Are you sure that a knitting club for your area is such a great idea? It's a stupid example, but we try to bring back your ideas with trying not to discourage you, but in the broader perspective of, the population in your region, and also of what the university initiatives are, and also what we know as staff works or doesn't work. So we looked at a number of events that all our clubs were putting together all over the world. And just to give you a random idea, when I started in this job, we estimated 2.5 years ago that we had at least, outside of the United States, at least 100 events per year that we were not aware of. So we know there's a lot going on all over the world, in the US, outside of the US. What is important is that these events, are organized in collaboration with us, and I'll come back to the term collaboration, but are completely driven by you and supported by us. And I'll come back again to the kind of support we can provide. Because again, this is what makes your alumni community and your club sustainable. So the number 6 doesn't come from a magic, hat somewhere. It really comes from an average of things we looked at over a period of 2 years to see what really was working. And some people told me, wow, 6, it's a lot. Well, I don't, your General Assembly, maybe you have a distinguished speaker series, with an alumni in your region. Maybe you have a book club and you're going to have a holiday party. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of other things. Well, here you go. The 6 are there. So it's just a matter of thinking about these 6 events, again, a minimum requirement, checking in with us, and we will help you put a calendar, for the entire year. So this is really where it's coming from. Last but not least, follow the guidelines set forth by the Alumni Association. So what are these magical guidelines, which you will see at some point? We're not at a point where we can share those with you because we're in the approval process. Once this is all put together, it goes to the subcommittee of the Board of Trustees and then back to the ABG. We'll look at them, and you can imagine there are a lot of people involved into the terminology that we use to make sure that it's user-friendly, that it's in compliance with university regulations. And we hope that we will be able to launch these guidelines by, at the best early November, at the latest mid-November. And you will see a major communication campaign coming from us with these guidelines and instructions of what we would like you to see. Again, I'm using the word guidelines. We're not using the word rules, which doesn't mean we're not going to tie you to a few things, because we will. But we completely understand that we need to be really flexible on the different needs, on the different alumni population that you have, on some cultural aspects, especially outside of the United States, and also on what works and doesn't work, which sometimes we might not always, be aware of. So again, these guidelines are really meant to help you. This is not a tool to scare anyone. There's really nothing to be scared of. It's a 30-page document meant to help you go through everything that we think, and I hope we know what we're doing, we think will help you as a club. All right. So what is the Alumni Association Alumni Club Partnership? I spoke earlier about the fact that we wanted to support you and serve you, and we really see this as a partnership. We're not dictating to volunteers what ideally we would like them to do. This needs to be a constant communication and discussion. So the club's role. Well, input and metrics to help the Alumni Association, and Mike will expand on that, but I just want to spend 1 minute on that topic. I mentioned to you just a few minutes ago the number of events and the events that are organized all over the world. Well, again, there's so much we do not know about. And it's really important for us that we are able to capture this information, the type of event, where did it take place, the topic, the format, who attended. Because we gather all this information, we code it, and in return, should someone come back to us and say, oh, I want to do a volunteer caucus in Costa Rica. Okay, so we would look, it's a bad example because we don't have a club in Costa Rica. Let's say we have one. We would look, okay. We would look at everything that has happened, in that city or in that country or in that region. Look at the entire metrics in terms of who attended, the age groups, the degrees, the kind of events, and we would be able to go back to you or go back to other people who work with us and say, oh, that's an amazing idea because, oh, no, that's not a really good idea because. So it's really, really important for us that we capture this data, not only in terms of type of events, but also in attendance, because as you know, or as you may know, our database is not exactly accurate, which is a 21st century issue. mostly because we have not been doing really a good job at keeping track of people, but also because the world has become very small and a lot of people move. And when they move, I'm sure that on the top of the checklist is not inform the Chicago Alumni Association. So when we know that people are attending your events, it's a very good tool for us also to track that information. So in that kit, there will be a few forms, again, to track attendance type, and the short annual report. And the short annual report, as it says, it's a short annual report. It's nothing to be scared about. But we want you, by 1 July of each year, to get back to us with that form. And again, all these forms will be electronic. You will not have to kill trees to accomplish all of that. And tell us what you've planned, what has worked, how's your financial situation, any changes on your board, and what are your plans for moving forward the year ahead. And I would like to give the floor to Mike, because I think as a volunteer, I can explain to you why this is so important to us.
Yeah, if I step back for a second, just think about what does all this really mean? It's really that all the regional clubs, all the clubs in general, are things that have to be owned, driven by alumni. The staff can't do it. The staff can drive sort of the standard events that happen in different cities, Harper Lectures and things like that. But our experience is clear. When clubs are sort of owned and led by passionate alumni who are excited about it, they succeed. When they're not, they sort of fall apart. And the second big insight is that the staff is most effective at helping alumni run these clubs when they have good information about who's in the local population, what events are happening, and all this data that they gather feeds back in terms of continuity. Clubs change hands, change leadership. The staff maintains a sort of long-term picture of your local community. So all this information you're providing, and one thing I should point out is over the last 3 years, the university has changed its database system. So the historical problems that Stephanie was referring to are going away. And so if you sort of flash forward 3 or 4 years, as we gather all this information that you give us, we're going to be able to feed back to you lots of good insight about what worked, what didn't work in your cities, what worked and didn't work in other regions. So it's actually going to come back and become really valuable. A lot of the things that you're being asked to do are the baseline from which we're going to be able to make it a lot easier for people to run their clubs and, frankly, step away from paperwork and trying to sort of figure things out and find addresses and find information to what we really want the local alumni to be doing, which is envisioning, being the conduit by which those local communities say, this is what we're really excited about doing, this is an event we want to go to, and then organizing those. So it may seem like some stuff we're asking you to do up front, but it'll have benefits. And the second one, I'd refer to the prior page. Why do we want sort of an organized structure to these clubs? Because again, in our experience, clubs that have layers of leadership and sort of a little bit of structure around that leadership survive a lot longer. Where we have clubs where there aren't layers of leadership, where you're not constantly bringing up and bringing in new leaders, when the one leader who is driving it gets distracted, moves to another city, they totally blow apart. So it's critical that the other thing is this, those new people that are brought into leadership, that are brought onto these boards, stimulate new ideas, they bring in new people to the club, they sort of build up the community. So all the stuff that we're laying out here, it's an investment we're asking you to make, but it's going to, A, make life a lot easier going forward, B, ensure the sustainability of your club, and C, and I think this is maybe the most powerful one, give the staff the fuel they need to service you better, to give you analysis, to give you lists, to show you reports on what's worked and what hasn't. So you're making an investment now, but you're going to get big returns in the future from the staff as a result of it.
Thanks. Thank you, Michael. So we talked about the club's role, which is really to try as much as you can to adhere to what we just talked about, the events attendance, the annual report, and the volunteer guidelines. So what is our role as staff? Very often when we travel and we try to recruit volunteers, I get the question, but I need an assistant, I need a secretary to do that. I can do it myself. And my standard response is, well, that's what we do. That's who we are. We are your administrative support. To a certain extent, but 90% of our role is really about that. So we are, again, here to help you plan events, to help you think about events, to help you strategize, and to help you promote these events. And we'll come back to the part about promoting and the kind of support we can provide with that. We talked a little earlier about university initiatives. You heard Bob Zimmer earlier today talk about his priorities. A big part of what we do, we try to align with that to the best of our abilities, whether it's about faculty, lectures in your regions or other things. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not possible. But in terms of the Alumni Association University initiatives, it's really, again, we're coming back to the alumni-driven, staff-supported concept. So we really want you to think about specific type of events that, again, can be completely driven by you. And what are these? Those are, for example, Distinguished Alumni Speaker Series. You have amazing alumni everywhere around the world, and you know who they are. So, again, communicate back with us and give us ideas. And I'm sure there's some. We know some, but we need to know more. Laura and I. Okay, I'm sorry, because I was seeing you nodding. So, Distinguished Speaker Series, for example. Other university initiatives, which most of you know about. Phoenix Fest. Can someone tell me what Phoenix Fest is? Not staff. No?
It is an event for young alumni in the early fall.
Right. So it's traditionally last weekend of September. It's an event so that alumni who've graduated 5 years out are all invited to get back together. It's really important because it creates a stronger community of young alumni. It's also a really good pool of people for you volunteers to recruit from. Another university initiative, send-offs. Send-off? Is? Suzanne.
We do that every August. We want to make sure it's early enough so that athletes are going to start their conditioning and such have a chance to go also. But we invite all of the students who are starting as first years and any returning students who would like to come and offer their words of wisdom, especially down in Florida. How do I handle the winter?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So send-offs are organized all over the world. Top of my head, I can't remember how many we had this year, but it's a key event for you to meet the incoming, the matriculating students. In the U.S., it's College Focus. Outside of the U.S., we invite everybody across the board because we want to create a critical mass. And again, these university initiatives will be explained in guidelines, and this is something you can check in with us, on a regular basis. So the implementation of these guidelines mean there are going to be a few changes. But let's talk about what remains right now. And really, the most important thing that remains for you is the type of support we can provide you with. And this is marketing support for your events. So what does it mean? Creation of blast emails. In some cases, printing of postcards. For the major clubs, and we're talking about the U.S. mostly, printing of brochures. It's also helping you reach out to people you might not be able to reach out. They might not respond to your email, but they might respond to ours. And this comes also from another place, is that it's extremely important for us to brand events systematically, and, in a very thought-through manner, so that everything looks the same, and then every alumni who sees an email all over the world recognize this is a University of Chicago Alumni Club event. Financial support will be solely provided for university initiatives. Phoenix Fest, send-offs, and Career Month events too. I forgot it on the list, but this is a new initiative. We've asked our large clubs all over the world to put career networking events in the months of November every year, and Harper Lectures, of course, which are entirely financed by the Alumni Association. We are not financially able anymore. This is the bad news of the day, but I'm sure there's a solution to it, to just say yes to any financial request to fund events. We will not be able to do that anymore. We just simply do not have the means. And volunteer training opportunities, and today is one of them. It's Volunteer Caucus. Another tool we're looking at is online training, especially to run university initiatives. Step-by-step training that would help you, figure out how do I handle registration, what do I need to do the day before the event, What kind of form again, Stephanie and Ryan? Did you want? What is it that I need to check in with you, before the event? So we're looking at that right now. So what is new with these guidelines? We talked about what was remaining and what is new. Well, we just talked about the club finances, and I have a few volunteers who came to me and says, well, how are we going to do this if you're not going to give us any money? Well, again, we will fund university initiatives. I think a lot of our clubs all over the world have been very resourceful into soliciting alumni to help sponsor events, and also doing a little bit of fundraising. Payal and I were talking about it yesterday, and to selling Chicago memorabilia in New Delhi to fundraise for the club. So there are a lot of ideas out there, and we'll be more than happy to help you think about those. Short annual report, we talked about it. What we want is that we want clubs to have bylaws. It's extremely important that clubs have bylaws. We know some do, we know some don't. For some people, it's so scary. Part of the guidelines will have a set of bylaws that you can adopt for your clubs and your volunteers, and you can amend, and you will need to get back to us to see that it is approved by the Office of Legal Counsel.
Two really quick points. One is, I think there's always a tension in clubs between the leadership's passion for certain things and their interest in creating a broad community. And I just think it's important for all of us to keep that balance in mind. On the one hand, you want to pursue the things as leaders that you're excited about. In the ABG, I have things that I absolutely love and I want to focus on. But at the same time, you need to drive your clubs to balance that with the need. You're the leaders that are serving a really broad community, and your clubs will be successful if you address that broad community. So think about what you're excited about doing and what your peers are excited about doing, but also what's going to be exciting to a broad range of alumni in your region, because that's the way you're going to be successful. And what is coming, I think, leads into that. The university historically, and President Zimmer would be the first person to say this, has not given massive amounts of support to alumni. Until about 15 years ago, alumni were sort of viewed as something out in the distance, vague, either that or walking wallets. And that has radically changed in the last decade.
Yes, I can attest to
Yeah, and the great new example of this, and it's not that we're not way behind the curve, but we're starting to catch up, and there's an immense amount of focus on this, is the alumni web community. So if you haven't visited, how many of you have spent any time sort of futzing around the website? Okay, for those who haven't, you should go. It's radically better than what we had before. That said, it's far short of what we need, and the staff and the president know this and are working on it. So the web community is a great start. Over the next year, and I can't give you hard deadlines, although I think some of you saw demos this morning on some of the stuff that's coming out. But over the coming year, one of the biggest one is probably the club microsite. So you'll be given a microsite. It's a place to communicate with members of your community. It's going to be interactive. There are all kinds of features to it. Blogs. You can make announcements about events. At some point, there'll probably be transaction processing, so you can do event registration, maybe even collect money for events. So all of that is starting to roll out, and you'll be hit by communication over the next year as new stuff becomes available. And I'd urge you to sort of keep watching that space. All those tools, and it's not just the website, but it's all the tools that are behind the website, are going to enable you to do more communication about events, customized communication about events. You're going to start to be able to find opt-in groups that are interested in this or that or the other thing. And all these tools, again, like giving the staff information, are going to take you away from sort of the logistics of events, automate more of that, and let you focus on what does our community want, what do we want to do, what are we excited about, the stuff that you're really interested in doing. And then the web community is going to continue to have more functionality, and we're starting to parse the database that we have for regional contact information. So we'll start to be able to communicate in a more granular way with people in your region, people with particular interests, backgrounds in your region. So all that sort of, it's coming, it's not yet there, but you can hopefully see super positive movement. And the university is investing a lot of time and effort in bringing those tools to you. So,
just wrapping up, we will see in the very near term guidelines that come out from the Alumni Board of Governors that have been reviewed by the trustees to enable you to have more functionality, more connection with your alumni community, hopefully less detail focused on the nitty-gritty, and really enable you to keep that connection with your alumni community and engagement. So I think maybe we'll just take a couple quick questions. Is that good? Okay. Joan?
Well, I'm just a little confused about when the 501(c) status and the bank account issue came up, because when I was president of the Chicago
that's
Club,
new.
I don't know if that's a totally distinct thing, or if it's just this was looked at by the legal people and there was a total shift around.
The question.
Discouraged to have,
So for purposes of the folks online, the 501(c)(3) issue is something new and something that the legal department has come to recently as clubs have become more sophisticated. So it was true, sort of the blanket, this is how we want to treat all clubs, don't do it, is starting to evolve as they realize people have become more sophisticated, really want to reach out and really empower themselves in different ways. So it is something that's coming, and I don't think we have a set timeline on it, but look for it in the near future, and staff will be able to help shepherd you through that process.
And then the second part of that is, do you really want clubs to have their own bank account?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And which is tied to exactly what Laura just talked about. We do want clubs to have a bank account, which you're right is a complete 180 degrees from what was done in the last few years, because we want you to be autonomous.
Yeah.
You know, we can't constantly talk about alumni-driven, staff-supported concept if you're not autonomous.
And the rapid growth of the international community is really an area that's really driven this home, is that we can't provide the same level of one-on-one support, and we really do need to push this out so that it is volunteer-led, and they do have the abilities to do it.
My question would be, one of the things that I love about the staff support is that if I'm going to have an event, the registration and the payment can go through you guys. It just simplifies
That will still be the case.
so much.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering where my money would come from the bank for the bank account. I mean,
Right. So.
and where it would go.
Okay, so Joan is asking for specifics that I don't have today on how the actual financials will flow, but it's something that your regional community, your regional person, staff member will be able to help you with. But it is something, big picture, 50,000 foot level, it's something that they're really trying to push out to the clubs so that they do have the autonomy. And it's not clear to me yet if we're going to set that up in a little micro space or how this is going to work. But be rest assured that the staff support will remain. So much of the alumni events and the interaction that you have with the staff members will stay. Other questions? Yeah, Helen.
One thing that I would be concerned about, and granted this is from a very different angle than you are on, because I've not done this before, have you given thought to if what you're now saying to the alumni clubs is we encourage you to sell memorabilia in order to do fundraising and to ask for solicitations, are you not now biting your other hand and going to curtail the giving to the University of Chicago that's so important to the running of this institution? The thing that works, least well in charitable institutions is multiple asks from different parts, and I would be really concerned
It's a
that
great.
we're going to eat into the money that's so desperately needed on this side.
So the question goes to, Stephanie had mentioned earlier in the presentation, the opportunity to do some sort of local fundraising event. I think she was speaking more to the international clubs where the payment, the opportunities available to them are different in that other international universities treat their alumni base quite differently. And so what works here in the States may not necessarily work abroad, but it is something we're absolutely sensitive to, and we do not want to cannibalize our...
You're not saying we should have a fundraiser in order to have a Christmas party.
No.
You're saying
No.
you expect
No.
us to charge for the attendance.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Your Christmas, your holiday party should be self-sustaining, revenue neutral. That's
Right.
correct.
That's what I meant.
Chuck.
You do make a good point, but there is a kind of response to it also, which is that it's not necessarily a fixed sum game.
Yeah.
That people will want to support the local group and want to support the university as a whole. And they're, I'm sure it sorts out different ways at certain times, but you could actually expand the pie on both sides if it's done right.
Absolutely. So we see somebody in New Delhi wearing University of Chicago wear. I think that's a net positive. So something we can work on. Derek.
Question about, or
So the question was, have we thought about, in the absence of printed materials going out, have we thought about other ways to maintain the University of Chicago branding for events and pushing volunteer access to make it easier for them to promote and do the marketing locally? And
we just started.
And it's something we'd like to work with you on. And any ideas? Many volunteers have used at this point, Evite or other electronic means that are already in existence. And we're hoping through the alumni web community, as it develops more functionality, that's something we can also do.
And a lot of our clubs have Facebook pages or linked through LinkedIn. We completely encourage you to do that. And some volunteers were concerned that they were telling us, well, you're going to have an online web community. Why would you want to do that? All of that is going to be linked.
Yeah.
All of that is going to be linked.
Yeah, if you think about it as the technology becomes better and all the web-based communication, that's either sophisticated email or hopefully making your microsite a destination, it's actually really cost-effective because you remove all that paper. But you're right, you need, and that's why you have to work with the staff, you need to have templated content to make it really easy to do those blast emails, and you're going to need help putting content up to that microsite and getting people to use it.
So I think that's all the time we have for the formal session today, so we can get you guys out for the photo. But please feel free to grab any of us or the staff members afterwards, and thank you again for all that you do for Chicago.